How do you pronounce Chua Tu?
Chua Tu Bi.
Chua Tu Bi.
Which means temple of compassion. Loving kindness, compassion. So we've got our protector lions here, you know, on the outside of the wall, which is very customary. You know, they have their mouths open to ward off evil spirits. Actually, they're growling and possibly consuming them. Is the idea. And so we close this every night. As you can see, there's some gang graffiti, but the neighbors are really, you know, they come by anytime something like that happens and they power wash it and they try to take care of it because the community likes having the temple here. So we close this off every night. The gates and everything was imported from Vietnam, and she constructed it all herself. So.
Great.
And then when we go through and this is a three-way gate, which is very traditional, although I've never seen a temple that has it for cars. Usually it's just for people, and monks would approach through the center, and usually the side gates are what's open, so it's, you know, a formal aspect of a temple. But of course, we're being inner city, limited with space. We actually use it as the actual gate for the temple complex. So when we go through the front, we have this wonderful Avalokiteshvara or Kuan Yin with a big matching incense burner and two more protector lions. And she's actually found. We're going to have a 12-foot stupa that's going to be marble that we're bringing over from Vietnam. That'll be put up right in the center of this back wall here. So a lot of construction is still ongoing. So this is our pagoda, which is different than a stupa. We talked about stupa earlier. And this houses one of our, I think we have 4 Kuan Yin statues, which is the bodhisattva or archetype of compassion. Very important to Vietnamese Buddhism. So it's got this is a unique Vietnamese artifact. The switch is inside, but this lights up and spins, and it's very dramatic. So our nun here is very adamant about planting flowers everywhere. So we have some magnolia trees and really kind of fun stuff. And of course the weather affects us more often than not with trying to plant tropical plants. But it's funny because sometimes she'll have some Vietnamese fruit or something, and she'll just throw the seeds back here, and then occasionally you'll find a squash that's this big, you know, which is some Vietnamese variety. We have some goldfish and several koi. And we just cleaned out their lily pads. It's a bit overgrown, so they'll regrow here in the spring.
What are their names?
I don't think they have names. I call them our koi friends. So this is another Amitabha, which we call a Yida Fat, which is actually how most Vietnamese Buddhists greet each other. They say Namo Yida Fat, which means homage to Amitabha Buddha. So even in, you know, just mere greeting, they're giving some sign of worship and spiritual practice. So we actually use this area as well. You can see we've got these really bright lights that when we have like fundraisers or things like that, we have Vietnamese artists that come and use this as a stage and they perform. So we have lay people that cook food and we have a big party, and so these things are brighter than 1,000 suns, so we only turn them on for that purpose. But so this is our new Amitabha. Here, before you come in the main building, we have what we call our Ho Fat. And Ho means to protect, and Fat means the Dharma. So these are Dharma Protectors. And this one actually is, the story is derived that he is a Chinese king, or depending on the story, sometimes an admiral, son of a king, that was actually a historical person that vowed in death to protect the Dharma. So now he's enshrined at most temples. And then we have more of a classical protector deity here that's carrying a flag, telling everybody what to do. So their job is actually to make sure that the Dharma is practiced. They're fairly benevolent towards humans in the mythology, but they're here to make sure that the Buddha Dharma doesn't degrade. So then every night the nun comes out and offers them rice and water, and they like candy apparently, and chants to them for about a half an hour, and that's sort of protective mantras to keep the temple pure and safe. So wow. You'll see that at all traditional Vietnamese and Chinese temples, and even Korean. So it's kind of pointing out the arrangement of the altar here. You'll notice there's 3 levels, and actually in Buddhist precepts it requires that the monks have to be, you can't teach somebody on your same level. So that's an ancient Indian custom. So we have a couple levels that when you're teaching or praying, the clergy sit up there, like many altars. So there's a few levels. Laity usually sit down here, and we have a bunch of little desks that we put so they can put their scriptures and not put them on the floor. And usually, of course, being Vietnamese, they sit on the floor. So we have our first sub-altar here, which is Amitabha Buddha, which is the Buddha of the Pure Land, which is not recognizable to most Westerners, but is very important to most cultural Buddhists. And it's kind of the Buddhist equivalent of heaven. He's the ruler of heaven. And so then we have Mahastamaprapta and Avalokiteshvara, better known as Kuan Yin, on the sub-altar here. So that's what most people see. But if you come on up, you can see this is where we actually sit when we do liturgy. So we'll teach from this level down here, but up here when we do liturgy, we come up on this dais, and we have a couple more altars. And so, of course, we have our main altar that has Shakyamuni Buddha, and then the larger Kuan Yin on the right, and this is Kshitragarbha on the left. It's a little bit more difficult to describe again. And we have a Chandi Bodhisattva and a baby Buddha and all sorts of little things. And of course, we have our main temple instruments here, which are quintessential to most Far East Asian Buddhist temples. And this is called a fish drum, and we use this for chanting, so you can maybe pick up the sound on the camera. It'll be pretty interesting. We go monosyllabic when we chant. So we'll have one monk playing this and one monk playing the big bell, and so when we ring the bell, everybody bows, but they, Avalokitesh, so that's how we do our chant. Over here we have our Ancestral Altar. And so on the left is women and on the right is men, and this is for lay people, devout Buddhists that have passed away. Usually their ashes are interred at the temple. We don't have that currently. We're actually looking to put up a stupa. We were at City Hall today to inter ashes in. So again, we have the Buddha of the Western Paradise, Amitabha, that's over our lay memorial altar. And on the right, we have the memorial altar for the monks. And then we have some of our lineage masters here. So these are really great monks that have passed away. Most of them were monks, for 50, 60 years. So we're called our patriarch or ancestor hall here. And of course, some people would recognize we have a portrait of Bodhidharma, the first Zen patriarch or ancestor. And we actually have all of our sutras or scriptures are in these cabinets here. So for different days, we chant different things and pray different ways. So all those are there. And then we have our actual Bodhidharma that goes with the Ancestors Hall, made out of marble or granite, and he was a little bit too heavy to put up on the wall, so he stays there. Yeah.
Wow. Beautiful place.
Absolutely.
Amazing.
And these are really fun. Let me turn one of these on for you. These have the medicine Buddha, Vaishya Jaguru, at the top, and at some temples they'll use these for fundraising. We don't do that here. Where each of these 1,000 Buddhas would have like a donor that the person would dedicate to a person that's passed away or something. We actually do that on the wall rather than on these. So these are just kind of fun. They were donated as a gift to the temple. Okay, there we go. There's some chanting.
Wow.
Oh, yeah, let's see the best part yet.
Oh my goodness.
So this is our Buddha disco ball.
If that doesn't set the mood, I don't know what will.
I'm not sure what it sets the mood for, but it's very good. Can we introduce you? She's very humble, but this is the abbess here. Her name is Nisu Huadao, which means venerable or nun Huadao, which is her Dharma name. And I think your Dharma Hua means flower. So her name means, like floral path or floral way. So Taoism, like Taoism. So Huadao, Nisu Huadao. And she's in charge here.
Thank you very much for having us today. Thank you.
You're welcome, and anytime, and I hope you, every time we have a special.
So we write a lot of letters to the consulate in Vietnam every year to bring monks and lay people from Vietnam to visit and give Dharma talks in the native language, which is very important because obviously I can't speak Vietnamese.
Yeah.
And it's 6 tones, so Chinese has 5, Vietnamese has 6. So,
Yeah.
And 2 sets of diacritical marks, so it's very complicated.
Actually, it's the Vesak.
Visak.
Vesak.
So we'll have Visak holiday soon.
Yes.
Yeah, 18th or something.
It's May 29,
May 29th.
2016. It's Sunday.
Yes.
So that's the main Buddhist holiday of the year, of course. And we have 3 big ones, but Visak is the one that celebrates the Buddha's birth, enlightenment, and parinirvana or death. So
Then
Fantastic.
we have about 10 months.
10 monks.
Include you
Yeah,
to
yeah.
be.
Wonderful.
Maybe every nail, I stand there and I'm watching they shoot the nail.
Yeah,
And, you
she
know,
watches everything like a hawk.
that's why they say I'm difficult. I say, oh yeah, but that's why when they work, I be there, you know, and then they say, maybe I work for you, this is for last time, I don't want to do anymore.
Every year they say, last time I worked for you.
Become difficult.
But she's, you know, the idea is that she's not doing the construction work for herself, or for the Buddha, you know. So even if you look in here, the ceiling above the Buddha is very high, and you could put a second level. But in Buddhism, we never build above the Buddha. So the Buddha would have to go on the highest level or have open above it. So, but that's the motivation for doing everything exactly correct like she does. She's not doing it for herself or to just make a temple look good, but for the Buddha.
Fantastic.